So now, 15 minutes past the hour on a Tuesday morning, Treasury Department now investigating whether or not millions of Minnesota tax dollars helped fund a terror group in Somalia. And they're wondering why it could happen under Governor Tim Walz's watch. From Chicago now, Garrett Tenney looks at this. And Garrett, what have we determined thus far? Good morning to you.
Yeah, Bill, good morning to you. Well, both the House Oversight Committee and the Treasury Department say they will now be investigating these massive fraud schemes, including these allegations that they funneled millions of taxpayer dollars to the Somali-based terror group al-Shabaab. Those allegations come from a report by the Manhattan Institute's City Journal, citing federal counterterrorism sources claiming that millions of dollars in stolen taxpayer funds in Minnesota were sent back to Somalia and ultimately ended up in the hands of al-Shabaab. Those claims have not shown up in any of the federal cases targeting fraud in Minnesota, where more than 50 people have been convicted and 78 others are charged, almost all of them from the state's Somali community. But Congressman Tom Emmer from Minnesota says it needs to be investigated.
Al-Shabaab controls all the financial infrastructure in Somalia. This money has gone back to Somalia. Ergo, common sense would tell you that millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars from Minnesotans, has gone to terrorists known as al-Shabaab in Somalia. This is an awful situation. Tim Walz should be held accountable.
Federal prosecutors say more than $1 billion American taxpayer dollars were allegedly stolen through fraudulent billing to social service programs in Minnesota. Governor Tim Walz claims it was bad actors trying to take advantage of the state's generous support programs, but a defense attorney who's represented several of those individuals charged says Minnesota officials were warned about this and did nothing to stop it.
I liken that to someone saying, hey, someone's stealing all the cookies out of the cookie jar, and the government just running over itself to refill it as fast as it can and not getting to the root of the problem.
The White House and Minnesota Republicans are piling on Governor Walz, who's running for re-election next year, for allowing this massive fraud to happen. But the governor is defending himself, saying that a few months ago he created a fraud investigation unit to keep that kind of fraud from happening again.
Hey, Garrett, all right, setting the table. Garrett Tenney, thank you for that. Dana's got more.
Yes, and I have more with Comfortably Smug and John Ashbrook. Of course, they are from the Ruthless Podcast. I want to play for you the Speaker of the House from Minnesota, Lisa DeMuth. She is running against Walz for next November's election. Watch here.
Fraud in Minnesota under the watch of Governor Walz has exploded in his 7 years as governor. There are 28 known scandals of fraud. Just over 7 years, he takes responsibility for putting people in jail, but he's never apologized to the taxpayers. He's never taken accountability of saying this has happened on his watch, and he's pushed it aside.
And the New York Post editorial board said this, that if progressivism now means letting scammers and special interests take the state to the cleaners, expect Minnesota to start outgrowing its progressive heritage. I don't know, Minnesota's a tough one for Republicans to crack, but this seems very brazen and wrong. Smug, let's start with you in reaction.
Yeah, well, I think the important way to look at this is that every system accomplishes what it's designed to do. And the purpose of this fund wasn't to feed children or to help people during COVID. The purpose of this fund was to get Democrats elected in the most cynical way possible, good old-fashioned corruption.
And John?
Yeah, I'm telling you, Dana, this is a huge, huge story. You got Tim Walz saying that he wants to start investigating now, but the truth was there were government employees who raised red flags and investigated these frauds at the time. And what happened? The left-wing NGO bullied them out of saying something about it. So it's not a problem that was just recently uncovered. There were locals who knew about it at the time. The New York Times reported this. And the worst thing about this, Dana, is that the money was supposed to go to the neediest of all, people who are hungry, the homeless, families who have children with autism. They rely on those sorts of resources that were stolen and sent to Somalia. Mm-hmm. That original City Journal article that reported the money was siphoned by al-Shabaab quoted multiple law enforcement sources who have investigated this sort of fraud over multiple states, starting in Seattle and leading to Minneapolis.
Okay, so Smug, let me ask you this. How bad was Kamala Harris's vetting team when they chose Governor Walz?
I mean, I think they did a pretty terrible job. You have to know that they were also influenced by the anti-Semitism running through the Democratic Party. They had better people to choose from, like Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, but they ended up going with this guy who has endless corruption going on under his watch and is unwilling to take any responsibility. Kudos to Congressman Emmer for holding him accountable. I hope he keeps that up.
I want to read to you from Transportation Secretary Duffy on X. He says, it just keeps getting worse for Walz. Just one day after 400 brave employees from the Minnesota DHS exposed massive fraud, Transportation has discovered that 1/3 of non-domiciled CDLs, that's the truck drivers, were issued illegally in the state. He said, Minnesota, you're on notice. You have 30 days to fix this or lose $30 million in federal funding. John, that could pack a punch.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Dana, there's a pattern here, and it's a pattern of complete idiocy on the side of Governor Tim Walz. I mean, everybody knew that this guy was incapable of being the vice president of the United States when they met him last fall. And it's no wonder why Democrats tried to bum rush him through the process and didn't introduce him to America earlier. I have a theory, Dana, that Democrats do not want him on the main stage in 2028, and that's why you're starting to see mainstream sources of media fight against him right now.
And a last comment to you, Smug. Do you think Republicans have a chance here?
I think so. The thing is that the same way that President Trump won in states which were typically blue states or thought to be a lost hope, I think Republicans have a strong message because Americans are fed up with the corruption. They're fed up with the invasion of illegal aliens, which has been closed at the border, but now we've got to continue President Trump's work of getting them out. There's hope for Republicans coast to coast.
All right, Smug and John, thank you so much. Everybody listen to Ruthless Podcast. Thanks, guys.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.